Hey there, folks. So, just wanted to talk with you guys a little bit this morning about waterways, because I'm right here next to the Willamette River. Kind of hard to see it through the bushes right now, but there's the Willamette. And, these waterways, they've been here for a long, long time. A long, long time these waterways have been here. Where the snow melt up on the mountaintop has just washed down, and eventually it just refreshes the aquifers up on the mountaintop, and then once the aquifers are all refreshed, it seeps out, drops down to the ocean. So, a lot of it just runs off the top. It just never sinks in. But these waterways, they are what sustained us as far as Indigenous people go. And with it just being the Indigenous Peoples' Day of Mourning yesterday, then I wanted to talk a little bit about waterways, because everywhere that you see a waterway like this, a big one or a small one, is a place where Indigenous people lived, and like myself still live. And these waterways have been here longer than the people have, but these waterways are what kept us and preserved our way of life. And especially for people, coast Salish people like myself, that were inland and coastal Salish people, waterways are super important. And the reason I mention this is because right over there is a freeway, and it's loud, and at all hours of the day there's traffic, and that traffic is going along pathways that previously existed before colonizers arrived here. So when we think about Indigenous people and waterways, we have to recognize there were already these pathways that went along the waterways. So when you see like a railroad track and an interstate, and it's going right along the Columbia River, you can count on the fact that there was a pre-existing trade route there that went along the Columbia River well before colonizers arrived, because the people would live along the waterways. So, in my heart, in the way that I feel, I see these interstates, and it makes me wonder what's below them. It makes me question what got paved over, what was dug up and discarded without there ever being a cultural documentation made, or an awareness for the ancestors who might have been buried along these waterways. And it just makes me wonder, like, how many ancestors were dug up in the name of so-called progress. And my mind works like that. For whatever reason, I have this curiosity that when I see these things that I know have been used for thousands of years, I know that this river where I'm standing right now has been used for thousands of years. So what was lost? What was lost when the people were displaced from this land, massacred, and the land was stolen? What existed on this pathway before? Because this pathway has been here. This isn't like a new path that Parks and Recreation installed and we're like, hey, I have an idea, let's put a path along the river. No, there have been paths along the river. The people have always walked along the river. We hunted and fished along this river for thousands of years before colonizers came and kicked us out of here. And now they say our tribes are extinct, and that gives them a right to dig up graves without any environmental impact statement or cultural investigation to see if there might be remains there of people who, like me, love this land and are of this land, you know, so much of society is just built on these tenets of conquest. And what it does is disregards all of the pre-existing histories. So I don't know if you can see this. This hill kind of, it's pretty steep right here. It goes up, up, up. And over here is where the river is. So, you know, this hill where everything goes up, that's where the water line used to be. Before colonizers put dams in upstream and stopped the water from flowing in a natural way, it would be right here. You know, maybe at certain times of year in the summertime or something, when the water was diminishing or something, like a really bad drought, then there wouldn't be water right here. But, you know, sorry, pardon me, horrible bodily functions, so disgusting. But I just wanted you guys to think about that for a minute. I just wanted you guys to think about, like, what was here before. What would it have been like? Would there be a river right here? How else is there all of this hillside carved so deep like this, and then it goes perfectly flat right in line with the river? You know, how much land was covered up upstream so that this downstream area could be opened up for development? I don't know if you guys are, let's go on a tangent here. I'm in Eugene, Oregon right now, and over here, kind of to the north of where I am, is Delta Ponds. And right now it's being developed into kind of like this swanky, like gated communities and retirement inclusive apartments and just like whatever, $5,000 monthly mortgages. And it's all a wetland. It's a wetland that ducks and salmon and turtles and beavers and all kinds of animals used to live there. For thousands of years, there were animals that lived in that wetland. And now what they're doing is they dam off the river upstream. It stops the water from coming down. Then they bring in all this fill dirt and develop the area that was previously wetland. And now we end up with all this runoff going into our river because you have people living in a horrible way right next to the water. So, you know, that's what they're doing right now over there by Delta Ponds. You have these unrealistic developments that are relying on outdated forms of construction that are harmful to society. And they continue building them, and they're beyond the affordability of the vast majority of people in the US and especially here in Eugene. And so there's just a small minority of people who come out here whenever USC is playing University of Oregon, whether it's in basketball or football or baseball or track, and they have their little apartment building up there in the fancy area where they don't have to worry about seeing anyone who doesn't have a place to live or any kind of trash or any crime or desperation, and instead they just live in this fantasy world. And it's built around all of this colonization of indigenous people. If they hadn't deprived us of this land where we already lived, they wouldn't be able to put in that development. They wouldn't be able to desecrate those wetlands. They wouldn't be able to log our woodlands. And, you know, it's getting to that point in society where we recognize how horribly wrong things have gone. And with that understanding, we can't continue going forward in the way that we are. So we have to figure out better ways of doing things. And it's not really that difficult. The main challenge is gaining access to the capital and resources to accomplish the things that we know we need to get done. Because fossil fuels are killing us, but do we go and stop fossil fuel industry? No. Instead, we purchase more fossil fuel futures or open up strategic reserves or whatever. You know, we understand that actual green technologies are more like what are happening in underdeveloped nations, where they have to walk to the market. They have to walk to the pump to fill up their water bottle because they can't afford gas. So they don't emit anything because there's no gasoline. So if you look at places like South Africa, where they're like among the lowest emitters, it's because they don't have any resources as far as money goes to spend on gasoline and all the rest of this Black Friday bullshit. So anyway, trying to put out more videos and be more present in a social content creator sort of way, because obviously I have a lot of stuff to say. And you know, it's been a challenge lately to come on here and talk with you folks, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to tune in. I hope you have a great rest of your day out there, and I'll talk with you again very soon.